Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today, I'll be reviewing another budget PC build with some interesting components, mostly from AliExpress. We'll go through the specs, run some benchmarks, and see how it performs in real-world gaming tests. Let's dive straight into our components. Starting with the motherboard, it's one of the most popular Chinese no-names, the ZSUS X99P4, based on the X99 chipset. This board remains popular for ultra-budget builds using LGA 2011-3V3 and V4 processors and comes with all the essential interfaces. Supports dual-channel DDR4 with speeds up to 2400 MHz, PCIe 3.0x16 slot, Gigabit Ethernet port, SATA 3 and 2 versions, as well as USB 3.0 and 2, M.2 SSD support for both PCIe and SATA. The heart of this build is the server-grade Xeon 2670V 3 from 2014. It features 12 cores and 24 threads, with a maximum clock speed of 2.6 GHz across all cores and a TDP of 120 watts. Cooling the CPU is a Chinese Snowman cooler with 6 heat pipes and two 90mm fans that cool the radiator. For RAM, we have two sticks of 8 GB each, running at 2133 MHz. For storage, we're using a 1TB M.2 SSD with good enough read and write speeds of 3.5 GB per second and 3.1 GB per second, respectively. The graphics card in this build is the Radeon RX 5700 XT with 8 GB of GDDR memory. Detailed specs are on the screen. Powering the entire setup is the Chieftec CTG-750C power supply. And let's move on to benchmarks. Starting with CPU Queen. Here, our processor scored 74,696 points. In the IDAS 64 cache and memory benchmark, we achieved 32 GB per second read speeds and 23 GB per second write speeds, with a latency of 82 nanoseconds. In the WinRAR benchmark, our CPU scored nearly 19 MB per second. In the 3D Mark Steel Nomad test, we scored 1776 points. In Cinebench 2024, the CPU scored 42 points in the single-core test and 506 points in the multi-core test. The RX 5700 XT scored 4,280 points. Now let's see what this build can perform in some modern games at 2K resolution. And we'll start with one of the most demanding games of today, Alan Wake 2. At 1440p, low settings, and FSR2 in quality mode, we're getting an average of around 30 FPS, with dips down to 20. While it's playable at this frame rate, it's far from a comfortable gaming experience. When switching to 1080p with the same settings, the average FPS increases slightly, but not significantly. Next up is Hogwarts Legacy. On medium settings with FSR2 set to quality mode, our PC delivers a comfortable average of 60 FPS. Counter-Strike 2. At 1440p on the highest settings, we're getting 90 plus FPS with occasional drops to 50. Lowering the settings to minimum at the same resolution doesn't change the situation much. There are occasional stutters, but overall, the game is still comfortable to play. In God of War, with the high preset and FSR2 set to quality, we get 60 to 80 frames per second and a comfortable gameplay experience. In The Witcher 3, with the medium preset and FSR2 set to quality, we get 50 to 60 FPS, but there are occasional drops to 15 FPS. Red Dead Redemption 2 is still quite a demanding benchmark for any computer. With high settings and FSR2 in quality mode, we get a stable 60 FPS with very beautiful picture and smooth gameplay. Next, we have The Last of Us, Part 1. With the medium preset and FSR2 set to quality, we get 50 to 60 FPS with occasional drops to 30, but the gameplay remains comfortable. In Dead Island 2, we set the graphics to maximum with the FSR2 quality preset. On one hand, we get 60 to 80 frames per second, but on the other hand, there are stutters and 1% load dips below 30 FPS. In PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, with medium settings, the average frame rate rarely drops below 100 FPS, and the 1% low stays above 50 FPS. And finally, in the somewhat modern Grand Theft Auto 5 with maximum settings, we get a comfortable 60 to 100 FPS. In conclusion, this build delivers a respectable performance, especially considering its budget nature. It handles a range of modern games at decent frame rates, making it a viable option for gamers looking for a cost-effective solution. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more tech reviews and benchmarks. See you next time.